Today we're gonna take this cute t-shirt and these gorgeous fabrics and patchwork each of these letters. So each letter will be made out of a different fabric. For the patchwork t-shirt, I don't have a ton of just blank t-shirts, but I got this really super cute one from an arts and craft fair, and I thought it'd be really cute if I did patchwork over the letters. So it will still say corn dog, but each letter will instead be a different pattern of this fabric. So I'm gonna start by tracing each one of these letters onto a piece of paper and then cutting that paper out and then using those paper pieces as templates to then cut out the fabric. Then I'll attach them using some steam-a-seam and then stitch around the edges. I'm gonna use this light pad to make it a little bit easier to see the letters as I trace them. Now I want to figure out which letter is going to be cut out of which fabric. I've already laid the fabric pieces out in an order that I like, and since I have 5 fabric pieces but 7 letters, I'm going to do this heart and this gingham again between these 2 florals. So each of the florals will only have 1 letter, and then the heart will have 2 and the gingham will have 2 letters. We're gonna do C, O, R, N, and then repeat these patterns for the D and the O, and then this last G will be on that floral. So now I'm just going to trace each of these letters and then cut out the fabric pieces. And make sure if you're doing this and you're covering up another pattern with either an identical shape or a different shape, make sure to cut your new fabric towards the bigger side, if that makes sense. So for example, if I'm cutting out this O from this gingham, I'm going to trace around the template piece, but then when I cut it, I'm gonna cut a little bit larger than the template, and then on the inside it would be like on a little bit of a smaller side, so that overall the letter is gonna be a little bit thicker, just to make sure we cover up the original letter. And don't worry about the pen, because if you use a heat erasable pen, then once the shapes are all cut out, we're just going to press them with the iron and that marking will go away. You can also use a water-soluble marker or a disappearing ink marker as well. I want to share this tip real quick. If you're marking your fabric and the pen doesn't show up very well on the pattern side and it has the wrong side of the fabric, you can always trace it onto the wrong side of the fabric, but make sure to mirror the letter or just flip it like that. So now when I trace it and cut it out, it's going to be the correct direction of the C shape. Now that all of our letters are cut out, I'm just going to arrange them. And I'm gonna give all of them a quick press with the iron to get rid of any of the leftover pen lines. And then we're gonna use some steam-a-seam to attach the letters to the t-shirt. Alrighty, a little side story. I don't know if this is gonna be entertaining or interesting to anyone, but I wanna keep it really real here and honest and show the glamorous parts of crafting and the not so glamorous parts of crafting. This whole time I've been talking about how I'm gonna use steam-a-seam to attach the letters onto the shirt. And then I did a little bit of extra research and it suggested actually using temporary adhesive spray on a shirt because it stays a little bit more flexible and soft, because the shirt is flexible and soft. As long as you stitch the letters down, it should hold them securely. But I think it meant stitching on a sewing machine. So if you've seen my how-to video on making a name pennant, I do use this spray adhesive and I absolutely love it because it's perfect just to hold letters and smaller pieces in place. while you're sewing it on the sewing machine, because the sewing machine is a little bit more secure than just hand stitching. So I think that's where the temporary adhesive works well, is if you're just securing things to then sewing machine stitch on top of. But because I'm just hand stitching these letters afterwards using embroidery thread, I think it is important that I use steam a seam. It might add a little bit of stiffness to the letters, but not too bad, especially since this is the light steam a seam, so it's pretty thin. But yeah, I just wanted to share that this whole time I should have just gone with my original plan of using steam a seam, but it was totally worth testing out the temporary adhesive, because now I know that for this application, along with hand stitching, it's probably better to do something that will secure the letters permanently by itself, and then the hand stitching is just a decorative additive to it. The hand stitching is not what is actually holding the letters onto the shirt. So now I'm gonna do it the original way. I was planning on doing it before, and take some steam a seam. I'm gonna use one sheet, and I'm gonna peel back one of the paper layers. And I'm just gonna fold it so it's out of the way. And now I'm gonna stick the letters on. So now I'm just gonna cut out the section with the letters on it and then cut out each individual letter. Now that all the letters are cut out with the steam a seam on the back, I'm going to peel off the second lining paper and stick them into place on the t-shirt, and then iron all the letters. So while I was putting the letters on, I did notice that I kind of picked a fabric that basically matches the t-shirt, which obviously it's not ideal because you can't see the letters very well. But luckily, because there was already a letter printed underneath it, it kind of helps darken the fabric and it's a little bit easier to see the letters. But then also we are going to pick an embroidery thread to do a little embroidery stitch around each letter, which will give it a nice border and hopefully help the O and the D stand out a bit more. So this is my handy dandy embroidery box. I have all my different threads in here. So I'm gonna pull out a couple color options and see which one we wanna go with. Already off the top of my head, I feel like we gotta do a color similar to this to kind of help coordinate it a little bit. Plus it pulls out this gorgeous, is this like burgundy? I feel like that's a burgundy color in there. So let's see what we have. Oh my God, I might've picked out the perfect one already. Let's see what other options there are. Okay, yeah, I feel like I really want the thread to stand out on the letters and, like I said, give it a nice border. And this color is the first one I picked out. I just so happened to grab it. It is number 3857 or 3857, 3857, however you like to read those. And it's that perfect kind of like brick red, burgundy. I'm not great at describing what colors are what, but I think we should go with this one. Now that we have our thread color picked out, I'm gonna use this massive hoop to just help stabilize the letters as I stitch them. I'm gonna do just a back stitch around the border of every single letter and then the internal border as well for the O, R, D, and the other O. Embroidery thread comes in 6 small strands, so I've split that so that there's just 3 strands that I'm gonna be working with at a time. I'm gonna pop this shirt onto the hoop and then get started with stitching. So I've threaded the needle, knotted the end, and now to do a back stitch, I'm going to start by coming up through the bottom of the t-shirt. Make sure you're only going through this top layer of the t-shirt and not multiple layers. Then I'm going to go down pretty close to where we came up, and that's just the first stitch. To do the back stitch, I'm going to put my needle up through the fabric, but about 1 space over, and then come back down in through the space that I just went back down in. And then we're going to continue doing that all the way around. So you're basically stitching backwards like the name would suggest. And this keeps the stitches all in line with each other and forms a nice border. So like I said, I'm gonna come up one space over and then go back down in the hole that I had previously put my needle in. I'm gonna repeat that. I'm gonna go up a little ways away from where I made that most recent stitch and then back down through the same hole that that most recent stitch was in. The trickiest part is just keeping the stitch length even and then also keeping it relatively the same distance from the edge of the letter. Of course, it's totally cool if this looks handmade. I think that actually makes it look even better. So just do your best and it's gonna look fantastic because you made it. I just wanted to show an even closer look at doing a back stitch. So this stitch right here was our most previous stitch. So I'm gonna bring my needle up a little space away from where we put that last stitch. And then I'm going to bring the needle back down into the first hole of that previous stitch. Just like that. And we're going to continue doing that all the way around. Wow, that was way off. I just have a quick note for when you're ironing on your patches with the steam-a-seam. If you're ironing over a shirt like this that has a pattern, be aware that the heat and steam from the iron can potentially affect the image on the shirt. It can cause the color to run or mess up the image in some way. This shirt is screen printed, so I did notice that there was a little bit of color bleed when I used the iron. So to keep that from happening, what I suggest doing is using a towel or parchment paper to cover the image that you don't want harmed, so that when you're ironing, it's just hitting the patches. Now, because it's called steam-a-seam, I'm assuming the steam is a big part of what helps the adhesive work, but the heat itself is also a big component. So if needed, you could also put the towel or parchment paper over the whole shirt, even the patches, and iron it on that way. You might just have to hold the iron over the patches a little bit longer to make sure they adhere correctly. But I thought I'd just throw in that little tip so nobody ruins their shirt if they do this craft. And luckily, where the color was smeared, I was able to kind of scrape away the ink a little bit while it was drying, so I don't think you can really tell. All right, this is how the corn dog t-shirt turned out. I absolutely love the patchwork fabric on it. I think it adds so much fun and whimsy to the shirt and really personalizes it. I think patchwork is a fantastic way to upcycle a shirt or other piece of clothing, whether maybe it has a hole in it or it's just not quite your style, or you do love the pattern but you just want to add a little something to it. Maybe it's a plain t-shirt or pair of jeans and you just want to add a little flair. So I think patchwork is an amazing option, and actually patchwork would be a really fun crafternoon to do with your friends. I did an embroidery crafternoon last year, but it also included patchwork. So I just had some fabric and the steam-a-seam, and the attendees were able to cut out shapes and iron it onto their shirt and then embroider around it if they wanted. There were some really fun creations, so it's really neat to see what everyone comes up with. All in all, I absolutely love how this shirt turned out, and I can't wait to wear it to Quilt Con.